Hi, everyone.
How is the, no, there's a different recording going on,
Oh, I was like,
in the app here. Yeah. So, tell us about the 51st district. Where is it? And, it's currently occupied by Delegate Rich Anderson, correct?
that's correct.
Yeah.
The 51st district is, we call it a butterfly kind of pterodactyl type shape district. It goes all the way into eastern part of Prince William, touches Nokesville. Then it has a little subset that touches Carrydale, and then comes back around to my side of the Occoquan and the Occoquan River, eastern Prince
Okay.
William,
Eastern
51st
Prince William County.
district.
And only Prince William County, no other locality?
Uh, Well, it touches Nokesville, but I don't know if you want
That's in
to,
the county.
that's in the county. So it's
Right, right, right.
no other county, right?
Okay,
We're
okay.
not in a congressional or state. We're not in those types of districts. We're not that big, but
Right, 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 right.
yeah, the House districts are a little bit different.
Right, right. So, but sometimes they can go into different jurisdictions. So you're only Eastern
Yes,
and Prince William County. Great.
absolutely.
Well, the number one question on everyone's mind to anyone candidate who runs for office is, why are you doing this?
Why am I doing this? Why not? I think running for office is one of those things that you have to be called to do. Certainly, getting into a race and running is not an easy thing to do. So you have to be very thoughtful about jumping into a race or putting yourself out there public facing in order to run for office. I've done a lot of grassroots in the community, aside from my day job as a cybersecurity specialist for the Department of Homeland Security. So when I departed the government as a federal employee, I've been serving in my private time or volunteer capacity, doing campaigns, doing advocacy, and being a lifelong Virginian, you start to just get that nudge that, after years and years of service and volunteering, you may feel a call to run for office, although it's easier said than done.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yes.
No, so well. So what was the call? What was the visceral gut? You should run. What was that moment like?
Well, it was definitely, it wasn't something that I hadn't considered before.
Okay.
For a couple of years now, I had been thinking about it, but for me, I like to take a step back and be thoughtful about it. I had a lot to think about, being a single parent of two, being
Sure.
a federal employee, you had to find other work, being a part of many boards. Those are sacrifices you would have to make. So I think that it took me some time to get to this point of jumping into the race, but I think that uh, just with anything, you have to make sure that you're the right person for the job. That, me doing the work in the community and doing all the volunteering, you know, for me, I had to say, hey, is this enough? Is this enough to just run for
Right.
office? And that question ultimately was answered. Yes, you have done so much work working on campaigns, volunteering with organizations, working to make your county and state, serving at the state level under Governor McAuliffe, Council of Women, to make it a better place. Then yes, this is the next natural step for me.
Great. And congratulations on your decision and
That's what
desire
they
to
keep
serve the
telling
public.
me.
No, no, no. This is look. We often lament that people won't run for office, and then when they do, we don't thank them. And we should thank our elected officials who are willing to take on that burden. Voice of experience there notwithstanding. The Just so the business leaders around the Commonwealth know just to get a flavor of the timing in politics and the calendar that really exists. When did you first start the process of preparing yourself to run for office?
So I think that there were several steps. Like I took courses, candidate courses over the years. I engaged myself in politics. That's another way of putting yourself out there, public facing. Um, Volunteering on campaigns. I'm a firm advocate of that. If you want to know the policies, you want to know the issues, you want to know what it's like on campaign life. That's the closest that you can get to it. So since '08, I had actually been doing this, and
Oh,
so it was a gradual next step. It wasn't, okay, this year I'm preparing to run for office in 3 years. It was a little less orchestrated and more organic, if you
Oh,
will.
okay. Well, there was a gut reaction.
It was.
Good,
It was.
good.
It
Follow
well,
your gut. That's right.
well, it was a gut reaction in a sense that my life had reached a point where my son is graduating from high school.
Okay.
I've gone through so many trainings. I felt like I'd done the work and put the groundwork and have really deep root ties in the community that I've built up to this point. So,
Okay.
and then it says, okay, with what's going on in the world, with the climate, with all of my advocacy, it just kind of fit like a puzzle. Say, okay, this is the time that if you're going to do it, at least go out and do it. I think
Good.
that I love my community. I really do. And I love uh, giving them a positive outlook, to some of the experiences we've had over the last 100 days.
Good. Ah, well, there, reference to our most recent change in Washington D.C. We won't go into that too much. It's not what this is designed for, but it's also important to understand for a lot of the people in the business community and around this Commonwealth that there's going to be for every action, as they say, there's an opposite and equal reaction. And a lot of what we're
Yeah,
seeing in the Democratic parties today is the reaction to the Trump victory in November. And the market in politics is going to react to
yeah,
what has gone on, and this is part
great
of that
way.
natural reaction. So let's dive into some issues if we can. What are your
Sure.
top 3 or 4 issues that you're running on?
So I don't know if it's just a top 3 or 4 issues. I have quite a bit. I'm looking at Medicaid expansion. I'm
All
looking
right.
at equal pay for equal work.
Okay. Taking
Um,
notes here.
okay, Japan working.
Oh yeah, we're good.
Equal pay for equal work. I'm looking at uh, the transportation bill. Alleviating transportation congestion. I'm looking at education. We talk about teachers' pay. I've advocated with a lot of the teachers in our community. So, teacher pay and is also one of those things that is is a part of my love for the community.
Okay.
I've been with them. I would say I advocated for, raising the minimum wage.
Okay.
Um, so those are just a few.
Okay. Well, there's a theme there: pay, pay, and pay. The 3 of them.
Pay, pay,
Pay, pay, pay,
pay.
all the way.
Well, I never
Let's
thought of
start
it
off.
that way.
Let's start off in healthcare though, since that was your number one out of the gate issue that you mentioned, Medicaid expansion. Um, the Republican response or desire not to expand Medicaid is centered on the fact that they believe that the federal government will reduce the um, support by 10% across the board after a certain period of time, leaving a funding gap of a couple $100 million a year, which would have to be drawn from, in their estimation, K through 12, higher education, corrections, and the like, state employee benefits and the like. Um, is that a valid argument on their behalf?
So I heard, it looks like we had some disconnect. Could you repeat
Yeah,
the
we'll do it
question
again.
again?
No problem.
I'm
The
sorry.
Republican response to the conversation on Medicaid expansion is that they believe that the federal government won't honor the 100% reimbursement on Medicaid, and it'll drop down to 90, leaving a
Hmm.
funding gap. You back?
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure I can hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay. No. Is there some validity to the Republican argument that there's going to create a funding gap long term?
Well, we have what Governor McAuliffe had, initially stated. He talked about we have money that would come in to fund Medicaid expansion into the community that would help 400,000 Virginians, and that the remaining was going to be picked up by the hospitals, which would be I'm trying to condense it, which would be less than what we would be paying out for those who were not covered by Medicaid. So I don't think that their argument is valid. I would like to research more about how they came up with those figures and how they came up with those conclusions.
Okay. Um, Transportation. Let's stick with healthcare. What are you seeing in Eastern Prince William County You're very connected to the community,
Hmm.
young children. What are you seeing in healthcare? What are the needs of the 51st district?
So in the district, you see kind of a hodgepodge. So you have folks that are federal workers or transient in our community. You see that with the transition with federal workers or military members, it can vary. But there's also folks that live in the 51st district that don't have health care coverage either for many reasons, either one, lack of employment, transitioning, whatever the case may be, economics, so on and so forth. And when as I'm advocating and I hear those stories, I think that the challenge just to go into a local clinic and pay $150, which may not be economically viable for our constituents or for a member of our community to pay, and then if they have children that need to be seen, you're talking about an additional economic impact to their family. So healthcare is important. I have family members who have actually went without health care for some time, and it was quite disheartening. Either one, they were refused to be seen, or if they were seen, they incurred such a large hospital bill and had a large amount of debt to pay back.
Okay. Um, Brought up transportation. What are the transportation needs of the 51st district? I mean, obviously 95 is a lifeline there, and some of the other. No, what are we doing there? No.
So, transportation is rough out here. I don't know if you travel my area. So, I live in the 51st district in the Occoquan corridor. I'll call
Oh
it
yeah.
Old Bridge Road. That is a little bit of a trap for me. I travel to and from DC when I worked in the district, or if I'm traveling even locally. If you're going to work between the hours of, let's say, 6:30 or 8:30 in the morning, depending on where you're traveling, it was a challenge sometimes. It could take you anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours, depending on what is happening on 95, especially for those who use 95. If you're traveling further, you can endure a longer stance in traffic. And where I live specifically, touching that corridor that I mentioned, the Old Bridge Road, it's kind of the only core to 95 south as you're getting, you're driving in the morning. There's no
Right.
way around it. If that is backed up, uh, you're spending 1 to 2 hours easily a day on in traffic, just one way though.
Wow. Wow. So,
Uh,
so your transportation needs are clearly centered around commuting uh, to the employment hub, Washington D.C., Northern Virginia, deeper into Northern Virginia, inside the Beltway.
right. And sometimes my commute varied depending on, because of the line of work I did, if I had to report to a different site or a different locality. But I will tell you this, that spending 1 to 2 hours of precious time could, going to work, trying to get there on time, start your day, and then spending equal or more amounts on 95, especially if you don't want to pay the toll the toll to go through the hot lanes, which could be anywhere from $5 to $15, $20. And
Right.
again, that's an economic impact on folks that maybe can't take that option. So you're taking not only precious time away from yourself and your family, you could possibly be spending energy or money, I could say, using the toll lane. So I think that we need traffic relief, expanding traffic, talking to our folks in transportation, and find viable ways to relieve that congestion. It can be, if you live in the DMV area, it's kind of the given, the story. Oh God, they have horrible traffic.
Well, how do we alleviate that? What do you think your constituents are willing to do to alleviate that congestion, to mitigate that problem?
Well, there's things that we do have. We have ride sharing, or what they call the slug lanes. I don't like to
Oh
use that
yes.
term. We've used that, but I think we need metro, and we do need metro accessibility. I think that's an option to, one, reduce the emissions from cars that we put into our
Right.
air, but also, again, another way for mass transit to be brought to Prince William County. It could offer jobs, and it could offer options to reduce traffic congestion. I think that's just one of many solutions we could possibly talk about.
Is there anything off the table in your estimation that you say I can't do that? I can't raise the gas tax. I can't put more tolls on my constituents. What? Obviously, it's going to be funded by something. It's just
Well, of course. And I
not going
think
to
that's
happen.
something that that will require on my part further research and evaluation and discussion. I don't think I could just say this is what I would do. Here's my plan. I think that I would work with my fellow legislators in Richmond and come up with a solution, a unified solution. I think that there's something that to be said about working together to come up with an option that's viable for everyone.
But nothing's off the table.
I don't want to say, when you say nothing's off the table specifically.
It could be, titling tax fee on your car. It could be a combination of gas tax, tolling. I mean, you seem wide open to just solving the problem. You really don't say there's no red line to cross here.
I don't think that is necessarily the case. I think, again, that we'd go back to further discussion, and I would have to further educate myself what the impact of that would be to my district. Because if I say to you, this is not off the topic, I think that would be premature on myself to say, hey, this is what I'll do, and this is how I'm going to fix it. For me, being in research myself, I think I need to do more thoughtful research and have discussions and options brought to the table for consideration. And I think I need to also talk to my constituents. What are their thoughts on it? What if I come up with an option? How would they feel about that option if I should vote for it?
Okay. Thanks. Let's go to pay, and pay.
Like that word, you like that word, pay.
Well, it was like equal pay, minimum wage, teacher pay. We can, obviously economics and income are real important to an economy and a community, making sure people can make enough money to take care of their families. That's right. So, equal pay for equal work. Tell me about your interest in that issue. How do we get there? How do we do it?
So I am, as an activist, or an advocate, I advocate for the ERA, the Equal Work for Equal Pay, ratifying the Equal Rights Amendment. You heard recently news that Nevada just did it. It is literally, a piece of legislation that would give the option for, not the option, would actually make sure that the Constitution would not discriminate based on gender, which would be equal work for equal pay. If you've seen some of the statistics, women of different demographics earn different dollar amounts or different percentages of the dollar based on where they are in that demographic, if you will.
But like in that field?
No, it would be ethnic backgrounds. So
okay, but are they discriminated against in?
It's across the board.
Okay, would your proposal or what you support would be limited to the actual the occupations, or just across the board, averaging?
It would be across the board. When you talk about equal work and for equal pay, it would talk about equal qualifications, equal work would render equal pay. It wouldn't be based, or my pay difference wouldn't be based on my gender. My pay would be based on what I'm applying for, man or woman. We would earn.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just trying to see it in its implementation, and I want to use an occupation that would be. Just say middle manager. We'll just say we'll go gray term middle manager here. Equal pay for equal years of experience and whatnot. Is that limited to that particular occupation, or go ahead?
It's just equal pay for equal work across the board, off of any occupation, any field of work that you're doing. So, for instance, I work in IT security. If I'm a number one level and I apply for this job, man or woman, the pay difference wouldn't be based off my gender. It would be the equal work for equal pay.
Okay. Because someone in IT cybersecurity down in Southwest Virginia, clearly that's not the same job down there.
Right. I mean, I know that there's locality difference based on pay rates, but it wouldn't be something that would be based off of, hey, she's a woman of this demographic. She's only going to get 79 cents on the dollar, or 69 cents. I would.
What's the enforcement mechanism for that?
The Constitution.
I understand that, but how do you?
Well, I think that trickles down into policy. So, for instance, I did EEO work. There is equal opportunity, equal employer opportunity work, and we have the equal work Pay Act, where, they talk about this and how those policies are implemented. So it would look very similar.
But how would you know if someone was getting paid the same as someone else in a company?
Um,
It's the verification. I mean, it's beyond trust but verify. We're talking about a law. No, and the employer doesn't want to break the law, but how would you enforce the law?
sure. Well, I think that, I think pay is confidential. When you're going to work, they
That's
don't sit there, they don't
that's part of the
advertise.
problem.
So I think that, with that, I think there is more to be said that the pay itself would have to be widely advertised and
Okay.
transparent, that this
Okay.
job would be, advertised for a certain amount. That could be one way they could do that and say, hey, this
Okay.
position is starting out from here. And
Okay.
that, this, depending on your skill set or whatever, this is, maybe a tier effect. Um, I've seen it in other places. I'm trying to think as we're talking. Um, I don't want to say it's Pennsylvania or another. Um, I can't remember. Well, my aunt worked in one profession. It was nursing, and what they did was advertise the pay. It wasn't necessarily enacted by a law, but one of the policies is that, hey, here's your starting pay. Everybody comes in at this rate, and there's an evaluation
Okay.
period.
Okay. Okay.
That
Um,
was one way that they talked about equal pay for all workers when they
yeah.
were in.
You, I think coming from a business organization's perspective, we always ask candidates to discuss with local business owners policy initiatives so they can sort of flesh out how it would be implemented in case you are elected and you submit legislation. You can draw from those experiences to shape the legislation in the front end rather than have to go through the legislative process and be beat
Right.
up. And
Absolutely. I think there's part of that dialogue that you have to have.
absolutely.
Businesses have the lawful right to implement their own, implement legal policies,
Right.
and then that would be a discussion on how businesses would be able to, maybe like I suggested, hey, this is starting, salary rates. Some organizations already do that. Entry,
Mhm.
rates, based on years of experience, then so on and so forth. They start talking about the tier rates.
And some companies are doing it and advertising, marketing that they do that, which is some of the
Yes.
market forces that can be applied to
I
get done
think
what you
I've
want to get
seen
done as
a
well.
tech company recently. I know I'm privy to tech, but I think I've seen a tech company. I can't remember if it was Google or one of those organizations that actually talked about,
Yeah.
hey, we actually pay equal work for equal pay,
I want to say
or
it was
equal pay for equal.
Salesforce. Was it Salesforce?
Salesforce?
Salesforce? Was that the name of the company? Or I think it might have been. Anyway, let's move on to other issues of pay. Minimum wage, which is
Now
more of
you're
a
going to make me
direct.
go look at that. I'm going to say, who
Well,
is that?
this is all part of the learning process. It's not a quiz. This is not a
It is
gotcha
a quiz.
moment.
I always told
No,
them if they were ever going to take me, having a clearance, I'm trying to hear you too. If they were ever going to take me, that, I'm not good at quizzes.
it's an evolution. Trust me. In policy and politics and legislation, it is a
Yeah.
constant learning process.
I think
And
some,
frankly, what most people in the community, in the business community, want to know is that you're willing to listen and
yeah.
engage and learn from each other. And that's the whole purpose of this.
I think one of the
Truly.
values that I have working with the military, being a daughter of a master sergeant, so my
Oi.
dad, yeah, I was raised, by a military member. My dad, 28 years in the Air Force, and we had some exposure to that. I think one of the core values he's always taught us is to be fair and equal. And even if you don't have all the answers, talk with the people around you, talk with folks, and try to come up with a, a comparable and common sense solution for
Right.
all, to be equal and fair across the board. So I think
That,
that that
that's
is definitely a core value that I take with myself and
that's
was
that's.
raised on.
Well, and thanks for stating that because oftentimes candidates don't. Minimum wage. You're an advocate of raising the minimum wage
Yes.
to what and by when?
So that's another thing that I would actually have to talk about, um, with my community members. We do have, uh, how do I want to say this? It has been shared that there's a 15 for 15, um, the goal for 15 to raise the minimum wage to $15. I think that there's also a discussion that needs to be had because is that the number? Could it go higher? Could it go lower? Um, I'm definitely a fan of increasing the minimum wage. There are folks in different job markets that we want to be able to have families provide for their families and be able to work and live in our community. So part of that would be affording them economic opportunities.
And part of that, from the business perspective, is having jobs that are available to
Yeah.
be to be paid. And a lot of times that's not with a
Yeah.
$15. I mean, that's part of the conundrum for businesses. Say, okay, here's the going rate, and most entry level jobs don't start at 7.25 an hour, and probably in your district there's a couple, but I don't know how prevalent it is, but it is a wage floor. Again, the business community would say, please go talk to local employers and see what they're experiencing, just because they might not be able to track someone for less than
Mhm.
$15 an hour to even apply.
Well, well,
But it sounds like you're open to the conversation.
the purchasing power of, of our, the purchasing power of the minimum wage has dropped dramatically, and with inflation, since the 1970s. I got to admit, I was born in the 1970s, so, but
No
just
bragging. No
no
bragging.
bragging, right? Okay, so
I'm a little more than that.
I've been exposed to that, those to various economic situations growing
Sure.
up, and I think that when we make opportunities available, so having economic opportunities, it gives individuals the ability to thrive and create opportunity not only for themselves but for their families. If we go back to the minimum wage, for me to make 59 cents on the dollar and not make above a certain amount, that was really tough for me as a single parent raising two children, and affording school and even to go to college myself. I had to keep working and plugging away, but not everyone is as lucky as I am, to have had some of the opportunities or
Well,
interaction.
and the one consistent theme we've heard from candidates who've talked about raising the minimum wage is that they're open to gradually moving it up, tying it to a COLA, cost of living adjustments, consumer
Yeah,
price index adjustments, without jumping straight away to become economically disadvantageous for
that's
entry
true.
level jobs too. So, are you of similar vein?
Well, how do I say this? I want to work towards fair and, equitable solutions for employers and workers. I think that that is also, again, it takes it takes dialogue with not only our community
Mm-hmm.
members, but some of the economic experts. I'm not an economic expert. I can only speak to my personal experience and what I've been through in my district and, life experience and hearing those experiences of others, knocking on doors. We know that, there are concerns about even federal jobs now, so
Mm-hmm.
what are the alternatives? What are those options?
Right.
And are we able to create businesses here in Prince William County and open that opportunity, other training, vocational opportunities to assist with that? So I think it's a bigger dialogue than what we can discuss right here. But I think that,
Oh yeah, I'm not trying to nail you down. It's
oh,
just,
no,
again,
no,
it's
no,
a,
no,
it's a
no.
pattern of, look, when candidates what candidates think of conversations, and what the audience sees is sometimes very different. And what the business community is really looking for is someone who's open-minded, willing to have constructive dialogue, and
Absolutely.
open for compromise. So your theme has been very consistent this entire time. So
Well,
that's
I think that,
which is good, quite
well,
frankly.
you got to think about it. It's not a zero sum game.
No.
Um, it is, the ability to, um, the ability to work with employers
Yeah.
and employees. I think
There you
that
go.
that is, I think we need to have deeper conversations and those hard conversations.
They
I don't
are.
think, this should be a fault here nor there. I think we should, again, I'll go back to my core values, work together to build common sense, uh, options and opportunities so that our families can work and live and have a viable and thriving life here in our
Yeah, I got
community.
it. I don't.
I do
I
think that
I think I
that's
hear
my
you.
humanitarian side. I really
No,
want it to be um, something between the employees and the workers.
good.
That, and I think that can be a broader discussion later on as in my
Absolutely.
campaign, and I will expand upon it because I'm not opposed to business, even my personal business, to think about going into business and what that would look like. And
Right.
there's some education on my part for myself that I need to do. I think that I would like to see more businesses in Prince William County, small businesses. I'm an advocate
Good.
of, bringing that home right here into our district. Why stay on the roads? Go back to
Good. No,
traffic.
hey, I hear you. I hear you.
Let's build Prince William into the, being in the contract world. I have a understanding of, we have veteran-owned businesses. Of course, that's a part of, where I've been most of my life and working with the military most of my life. Then you have women-owned businesses that offer, equal opportunities for all. And I think that, there's an opportunity here for Prince William
Good.
to continue to grow.
Yeah, I
So
think so too. Let's move off to this, and we'll go to energy. And there's been you've got enough of it.
Oh, it's the coffee.
Now we know
Small
Dunkin'
plug.
Donuts. There you go.
Yeah,
So
Dunkin' Donuts.
one of the more controversial issues that's come up in the gubernatorial election is the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, and to a
Okay.
lesser extent the Mountain Valley Pipeline, which go across the central and southern part of the state to deliver more natural gas
Okay.
to parts of the state. Are you in favor of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline?
The Atlantic Coast Pipeline. So let me tell you this. I have not um, engaged fully with all the aspects of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. I think that it would be a little premature on my part to say yes or no. Am I in favor or not in favor of it? There's more education um, on my part, but I know it does create opportunities for jobs,
Okay,
you
good,
know, and
good,
so that I am aware of. It
good.
creates opportunity. And that is as far as I can take it with you. So I have to do my homework on this. I
Good.
have to be honest.
Again, this is all part of the conversation, the dialogue. The one thing you learn in your campaign is, and you have readily admitted, candidates don't know everything. Candidates should know everything. They're there to listen and hear what their
Yeah.
constituents have to say, and learn from that and make discerning judgment and move forward.
It may not
that's
be
what
the
the
most
process is.
politically favorable, but I will tell you this: what you see is what you get. I will be very honest and open and fair and equitable across the board. I think that's again a core value I've learned from my father and being with the military. You can't do it alone.
Right.
Teamwork makes a dream work.
Hey, I like that one.
Your
I
new
never heard
logo.
that. That's your new logo. I don't. That's on your bumper sticker, not mine. Anyway, Hala, it's been a pleasure talking with you today, and hopefully
I
we'll do it
studied all
again.
these bills that you gave me. You can't leave me like this, Chris. You
We can do this again. We can come back another time, but I don't want to take up too much of our audience's time.
okay.
We can do this again, and should you win the nomination, we'll do it again. Okay? And we can come back
You
again.
win the nomination, Chris. What are we
All
talking
right.
about? I mean,
Look. We can do this again. We can do this again.
absolutely.
Okay? We'll
It's
do it
been a
again, even before
pleasure.
the nomination. Are you in the June 13th primary?
I do. A June
Okay.
13th primary, so tell your
Okay.
voters to vote.
Okay.
Um, you know, and consider me. Come stop by my house. I do lots of coffee, as you can see,
Yep.
and we can do coffee, and talk about more about this business aspect. Because, like, I'm myself researching it, and hopefully, I might be a business owner in the future in Prince William County.
Good for you. Well, you're going to be if you're running a campaign. That's a business. Trust me. Anyway, Hala, thanks for coming on with us today, and best of
Thank
luck to you
you.
this weekend in your campaign.
Take
Take
care.
care. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye. So how do I? Oh, that doesn't.